The technical bay of the research vessel Harmony hummed with quiet activity as Marcus wiped grease from his hands. The human engineer had spent the morning calibrating atmospheric processors, a job that required more patience than skill. Around him, various alien technologies blinked and whirred in languages of light and sound that he was still learning to understand. Marcus had joined the crew 6 months ago as part of the Galactic Council's new integration program. Earth was still considered a junior member of the cosmic community, and humans were often seen as useful but primitive additions to multi-species crews. Most of the time, Marcus didn't mind the perception. He enjoyed learning from beings who had mastered technologies beyond human imagination. The bay doors slid open with a soft hiss, interrupting his thoughts. Zara entered, and immediately Marcus could see something was wrong. The Chthoni warrior moved with obvious pain, her usual graceful stride replaced by careful measured steps. Her bioarmor, normally a brilliant shade of deep blue with silver highlights, appeared dull and sickly. Patches of the living material had turned an alarming gray color, and Marcus could see areas where the armor seemed to be pulling away from her skin. "The medical bay sent me here," Zara said, her voice tight with discomfort. "They said you might be able to help with equipment repair." Marcus set down his tools and approached carefully. He had worked with Chthoni crew members before, but never on anything as personal as their bioarmor. The living suits were more than just protection. They were companions, bonded to their wearers from childhood and capable of sharing emotions and sensations. "What happened?" Marcus asked, keeping his voice gentle. He noticed how Zara held her left arm close to her body, and the way the armor around that area seemed to ripple with distress. "Pirate raid on mining station Theta 7, Zara explained. "We responded to their distress call. Energy weapons. My armor took several direct hits while I was helping evacuate civilians." She paused, and Marcus saw her jaw tighten. "The medical scanners say the damage is too severe. They want to remove the affected sections before the armor's death poisons my system." Marcus had heard about this before. When bioarmor was severely injured, it could enter a death spiral that would eventually harm its wearer. The standard procedure was surgical removal of the dying sections, but that meant the warrior would lose that armor forever. For a Chthoni, it was like losing a limb and a best friend at the same time. "May I take a look?" Marcus asked. Zara nodded, though her expression remained wary. She extended her injured arm, and Marcus could see the full extent of the damage. The bioarmor's surface was cracked and discolored, with some areas appearing almost translucent. But what struck Marcus most was the way the armor seemed to shiver, like an animal in pain. Marcus moved closer, studying the damaged sections without touching. His engineering training kicked in, but something else guided his observations, an intuition he couldn't quite name. The other crew members often joked about human gut feelings, but Marcus had learned to trust his instincts when working with complex systems. "The scanners show cellular breakdown and neural pathway disruption," Zara continued. "Dr. Venth says the armor is beyond saving." Dr. Venth was the ship's chief medical officer, a brilliant Altarian whose species had mastered biotechnology centuries before humans had even discovered fire. If he said the armor was beyond help, most beings in the galaxy would accept that diagnosis without question. But Marcus wasn't most beings. "Can you feel what the armor is feeling?" Marcus asked. Zara looked surprised by the question. "Yes, of course. That's part of the bond. Right now it's in great pain. But is it dying pain or hurt pain?" The distinction seemed to confuse her. "I don't understand the difference." Marcus thought for a moment, trying to find the right words. "When my grandmother was very sick near the end, the pain felt different than when she had broken her leg years before. One was the pain of something trying to heal. The other was the pain of something letting go." Zara's eyes widened slightly. The Chthoni were warriors, trained from birth to understand conflict and survival, but they approached problems with logic and strength. The idea of distinguishing between types of pain through emotional recognition was foreign to their culture. "May I touch the armor?" Marcus asked. "I won't hurt it, I promise. I just want to understand what's happening." Zara hesitated, then nodded. "Be very gentle. It's extremely sensitive right now." Marcus reached out slowly, placing his palm against an undamaged section of the armor near Zara's shoulder. The material felt warm and slightly soft, like leather that was somehow alive. He could feel a faint pulse beneath his hand, irregular and weak but definitely present. Then he moved his hand toward the damaged area. The moment his fingers touched the injured section, he felt something he hadn't expected, not just pain, but fear. The armor wasn't dying. It was terrified and trying to protect itself by shutting down. "It's scared," Marcus said softly. "That's impossible," Zara replied, though her voice lacked conviction. "Bio-armor doesn't experience fear the way sentient beings do." Marcus kept his hand on the damaged section, letting his palm rest gently against the gray patches. "Maybe not the way we do, but it's definitely afraid. It's pulling back from the injury sites, trying to protect itself from more harm." He closed his eyes, concentrating on what he could feel through his fingertips. The armor's distress was real and overwhelming, but underneath it, he sensed something else, a willingness to trust. If only someone could convince it that it was safe. "The energy weapons," Marcus said, opening his eyes to look at Zara. "They didn't just damage the armor physically. They traumatized it. It's so afraid of being hurt again that it's shutting down all the damaged areas, cutting off circulation and healing responses." Zara stared at him. "How can you know that?" "You're not bonded to the armor," Marcus shrugged. "I work with machines all day. After a while, you learn to listen to what they're trying to tell you. Living machines just talk a little louder." He moved to his workbench and began gathering tools, not the high-tech instruments the medical bay would use, but simple implements designed for delicate work. A small brush, some cleaning solution, patches of synthetic material that could serve as temporary bandages. "What are you doing?" Zara asked. "I'm going to try something different," Marcus said. "Instead of forcing the armor to heal or cutting away the damaged parts, I want to convince it that it's safe enough to start healing itself." He returned to Zara's side and knelt down to get a better angle on the worst damaged area, which spread across her forearm and elbow. "This might take a while, and I'll need to touch the armor quite a bit. Are you comfortable with that?" Zara nodded, though Marcus could see uncertainty in her eyes. In Kithani culture, allowing someone outside the immediate family to touch their bio-armor was an act of significant trust. Marcus began by gently cleaning around the edges of the damaged areas, removing debris and dried fluids that had accumulated during the injury. He worked slowly, keeping his movements soft and predictable. As he cleaned, he found himself talking, not to Zara but to the armor itself. "I know you're hurt," he murmured as he worked. "And I know you're scared, but you're safe now. No more energy weapons, no more pain coming your way." Zara watched in fascination as Marcus continued his gentle ministrations. His approach was completely different from anything she had seen before. Medical procedures on Kithani bioarmor were typically efficient and clinical, focused on quick solutions to biological problems. But Marcus treated her armor like it was a frightened animal that needed comfort as much as healing. As he worked, Marcus noticed small changes in the armor's response. The gray patches remained discolored, but they stopped the constant shivering that had been visible when Zara first arrived. The armor's surface, while still damaged, seemed to relax slightly under his touch. "It's working," Zara said softly. "I can feel the difference. The pain is still there, but it's not as sharp." Marcus smiled and continued his careful work. He applied synthetic patches to the worst cracks, not as permanent repairs but as gentle bandages to protect the healing tissue underneath. With each patch he placed, he maintained contact with undamaged areas of the armor, providing constant reassurance through touch. "The thing about healing," Marcus said as he worked, "is that it requires trust. The body has to believe it's safe enough to put energy into repairing damage instead of just surviving." Hours passed as Marcus continued his painstaking work. Other crew members occasionally passed through the technical bay, stopping to watch the unusual procedure with curiosity. Dr. Venth himself appeared at one point, observing silently as the human engineer continued his gentle approach to bioarmor repair. "Fascinating," the Altarian doctor murmured. "I've never seen anyone attempt emotional therapy on bioarmor before." As the day wore on, the changes in Zara's armor became more pronounced. The gray patches began showing hints of their original blue color, and the damaged areas stopped pulling away from her skin. Most remarkably, the armor's bioluminescent patterns, which had been completely absent since the injury, began to flicker back to life. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked Zara as he applied another protective patch. "Better," she admitted. "Much better. The pain is almost gone and I can feel the armor responding to me again." She paused, studying Marcus with new interest. How did you know this would work? Marcus sat back on his heels, considering the question. I didn't know for sure, but I've spent a lot of time around injured things. People, animals, machines. They all need the same basic things to heal: safety, patience, and someone who cares about their well-being. He looked at the armor, noting the continued improvement in its color and texture. Your armor isn't just a piece of equipment. It's alive, and it was traumatized. No amount of medical intervention would help if it didn't feel safe enough to accept healing. Zara flexed her arm experimentally, marveling at the return of normal movement and sensation. The medical scanners said the damage was irreversible. The scanners were looking at the physical damage, Marcus explained, but they couldn't measure fear or trust. Those aren't things you can see on a molecular level, but they're just as real as broken tissues or disrupted neural pathways. As evening approached, Marcus finished applying the last of the protective patches. The armor's appearance had improved dramatically throughout the day, though it would clearly need more time to complete its healing process. I want you to come back tomorrow, Marcus said to Zara. And the day after that, if necessary. Healing isn't something that happens all at once, especially after a trauma like this. Zara nodded, then did something that surprised both of them. She reached out and placed her hand over Marcus's, pressing his palm against the newly healed section of her armor. Thank you, she said simply. You saved more than just my armor today. Marcus felt the armor's response to his touch. No longer fear and pain, but something warmer and more trusting. It was a sensation unlike anything he had experienced before, and he realized he was feeling what Zara felt through her bond with the living suit. As Zara left the technical bay, Marcus remained behind, cleaning his tools and thinking about what had happened. He had approached the problem as an engineer, but the solution had required something beyond technical knowledge. It had required understanding, patience, and the simple recognition that even artificial life deserved compassion. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and Zara's armor would need continued care to complete its healing. But tonight, Marcus felt satisfied knowing that sometimes the most sophisticated problems required the most basic human responses: kindness, patience, and the willingness to listen to what others needed, even when they couldn't speak. The technical bay settled into its usual quiet hum as Marcus prepared to end his shift. Outside the viewport, stars wheeled slowly past as the Harmony continued its journey through space, carrying its diverse crew toward whatever discoveries awaited them among the vast reaches of the galaxy. 3 days had passed since Marcus first treated Zara's injured bioarmor, and the results exceeded everyone's expectations. The Cathani warrior returned to the technical bay each morning, and Marcus continued his gentle care routine. What started as emergency treatment had evolved into something entirely unprecedented aboard the Harmony. Marcus was calibrating a sensor array when Zara arrived for her 4th visit. Her bioarmor now displayed its full range of natural colors, the blues and silvers flowing across its surface in healthy, vibrant patterns. But something else had changed too. The armor's bioluminescent displays were brighter and more complex than before the injury. Good morning, Marcus said, setting aside his work. How are you feeling today? Remarkable, Zara replied, flexing her arm with obvious satisfaction. The armor feels stronger than it has in years. Dr. Venth says the cellular regeneration is proceeding faster than anything in his medical databases. Marcus nodded, though he wasn't entirely surprised. Over the past few days, he had noticed the armor responding to his presence in ways that seemed to go beyond normal healing. When he approached, the bioluminescent patterns would shift and brighten, almost as if the armor was happy to see him. May I check the repair sites? Marcus asked. Zara extended her arm willingly. The trust that had developed between them over the past few days was evident in her relaxed posture and easy smile. Marcus gently examined the areas where the protective patches had been applied, noting that most of them were no longer needed. The armor had healed so completely that the original damage sites were barely visible. As Marcus's fingers traced the formerly injured areas, something unexpected happened. The armor's bioluminescent patterns began to pulse in rhythm with his touch, creating waves of soft light that radiated outward from wherever his hands made contact. The display was beautiful, but more importantly, it indicated a level of responsiveness that puzzled both Marcus and Zara. That's new, Zara said softly, watching the light patterns with fascination. Has your armor ever done that before? Marcus asked, Never with anyone except me, Zara replied, and even then only during deep meditation or bonding exercises. She paused, studying the continuing light display. It's responding to you as if you were a Cathani. The implications of this observation were significant. Bioarmor was designed to bond with one specific individual, and the neural connections that made this possible were supposedly unique to Cathani physiology. Yet Marcus, a human with no genetic compatibility, was somehow triggering responses that indicated a deep level of connection. Dr. Venth chose that moment to enter the technical bay, accompanied by Commander Thale, the ship's Altarian captain. Both officers stopped abruptly when they saw the armor's light display, their expressions shifting from casual interest to amazement. Extraordinary, Dr. Venth murmured, approaching slowly so as not to disrupt whatever was happening. I've never seen bioarmor exhibit this level of responsiveness to a non-bonded individual. Commander Thale watched the light patterns with obvious fascination. Marcus, what exactly are you doing? Just checking the healing progress, Marcus replied, though he was careful not to remove his hands from the armor. The light patterns were mesmerizing, and he could sense that breaking contact would cause them to fade. The repair sites are healing better than expected. Better than expected is an understatement, Dr. Venth said, pulling out a medical scanner. The cellular regeneration rates are 40% above normal parameters. The neural pathway integration is actually stronger than baseline measurements from before the injury. Commander Thale tilted his head, a gesture that indicated deep thought among his species. Marcus, I need to ask you something directly. Do you have any specialized training in biotechnology or xenobiology? No, sir, Marcus replied honestly. My background is in mechanical engineering and basic xenotechnology repair. Nothing involving living systems. Then how do you explain these results? Marcus considered the question carefully. Over the past few days, he had given considerable thought to what was happening between him and Zara's armor. I think it comes down to approach, sir. Most medical procedures focus on fixing what's wrong, but I tried to understand what the armor needed to fix itself. Zara spoke up, her voice thoughtful. He treated my armor like it had feelings and intelligence, not just biological processes. He talked to it, reassured it, made it feel safe. Dr. Venth looked skeptical. Bioarmor doesn't possess consciousness in the traditional sense. It operates on instinct and programmed responses. Maybe, Marcus said, finally lifting his hands from the armor. The light patterns immediately began to fade, though they didn't disappear entirely. But instincts can include things like fear and trust. If something is afraid, it won't heal properly no matter how advanced your medical technology is. Commander Thale exchanged glances with Dr. Venth. Marcus, I want you to document everything you've done with Zara's armor. Procedures, observations, techniques, everything. This could be important for future medical applications. Yes, sir, Marcus replied, though he wondered how he could possibly document intuition and empathy in a way that would make sense to other species. After the officers left, Marcus and Zara continued their session. But now their interaction carried additional weight. Word was already spreading through the ship about the human engineer who had achieved something that advanced alien medicine could not. Can I ask you something personal? Zara said as Marcus applied a final healing patch to a small remaining scar. Of course. Why did you become an engineer instead of a doctor? You clearly have a gift for healing. Marcus smiled at the question. On Earth, I worked with animals sometimes. Injured wildlife that people brought to my workshop. I discovered that patience and gentleness often worked better than forcing solutions. He smoothed the edges of the patch carefully. I guess I never thought of it as healing. I just saw broken things that needed care. Over the following days, word of Marcus's success spread beyond the Harmony. Other ships in their small fleet began requesting consultations for crew members with bioarmor issues. Marcus found himself dealing with cases that had been deemed hopeless by conventional medical standards. Each case taught him something new about the relationship between emotions and healing. A Rigelian scout whose armor had developed anxiety responses after a spacewalk accident. A young Cathani whose armor was rejecting standard upgrades due to compatibility issues. An older warrior whose bioarmor was beginning to fail due to age-related bonding problems. In every case, Marcus's approach remained the same. Understand the problem from the armor's perspective, provide reassurance and safety, then support the natural healing process rather than trying to force it. The success rate was remarkable, but Marcus noticed something else developing. The bioarmor didn't just heal under his care. It seemed to improve beyond its original capabilities. Enhanced responsiveness, better integration with its wearer's nervous system, even increased resistance to damage. It's like you're not just fixing them, Zara observed during one of their now regular sessions. You're helping them evolve. Marcus had been thinking the same thing, though he wasn't sure how to explain it. Maybe healing isn't just about returning to the way things were. Maybe it's about becoming better than before. 3 weeks after their first encounter, Zara's armor had transformed completely. The bioluminescent patterns were more intricate and responsive than any Marcus had seen before. The armor's strength and flexibility had increased noticeably, and its integration with Zara's nervous system was so complete that she could control its functions with unprecedented precision. Dr. Venth wants to study my armor, Zara told Marcus one afternoon. He says the improvements are impossible according to current biological theory. What do you think? Marcus asked. Zara was quiet for a moment, running her hand over her armor's surface. I think some things can't be explained by theory. I think you helped my armor learn to trust again, and that trust allowed it to grow in ways it never could before. Commander Thale called Marcus to his office that evening. The captain's quarters were spacious by ship standards, with large viewports showing the star field through which they traveled. Marcus, I've been in contact with the Galactic Council Medical Board, Commander Thale began. They want to study your techniques and possibly establish a new field of study around what they're calling empathic biotechnology integration. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the implications. Sir, I'm not sure my methods can be taught in a traditional sense. It's not really about techniques as much as it is about understanding and caring. That may be exactly what makes it valuable, Commander Thale replied. Advanced civilizations sometimes lose sight of simple truths in pursuit of complex solutions. Perhaps humans can remind us that compassion is as important as technology. As Marcus left the captain's quarters, he found Zara waiting in the corridor. Her armor displayed gentle patterns of blue and gold. Colors that Marcus had learned indicated contentment and gratitude. I wanted to thank you again, Zara said. Not just for healing my armor, but for showing me a different way of thinking about partnership and care. Thank you for trusting me, Marcus replied. You took a big risk letting someone from another species work on something so personal. Zara smiled. It wasn't risk. It was hope. And hope turned out to be exactly what my armor needed. As they walked together toward the common areas of the ship, Marcus reflected on how much had changed since that first day in the technical bay. He had thought he was simply fixing damaged equipment, but he had discovered something much more important. The power of empathy to bridge differences between species and create understanding where none had existed before. The bioarmor on Zara's shoulder pulsed gently as they walked, and Marcus could swear it was saying hello. Perhaps Dr. Venth was wrong about bioarmor not having consciousness, or perhaps consciousness was more varied and wonderful than any of them had previously imagined. Either way, Marcus knew his life aboard the Harmony would never be the same. He had found his calling not just as an engineer, but as a bridge between species, using humanity's greatest strength, the ability to care, to help others heal and grow. The stars continued their eternal dance outside the ship's windows, and somewhere among them lay new worlds and new challenges, but Marcus felt ready for whatever they might encounter, knowing that sometimes the most advanced problems required the most basic human solution, simply caring enough to understand what others truly needed.